What's going on, guys? Seth Catley here. So, I've since finished the build. It turned out amazing. Hopefully you think the same. But as I was watching it and editing it, I noticed that I missed a part. It wasn't like a huge part, but it was something. So whenever I mention the trim pieces, and you'll see that later on in the video, all it is, it's the exact same width as all the pieces of the frame, except it's only 3/8 of an inch thick. Instead of having it stay 1 inch thick, and you'll see what I'm talking about, it'll just stick out too far. I took it down to 3/8 of an inch. Looked really well. It's plenty rigid enough, and it works just fine. It gets the job done. So just want to go and throw that in there, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Really hope you enjoy the rest of the video. The whole point of this channel is not to show that I have expertise, because I don't. Really, I don't. I just have an excess of creativity. I make all sorts of things. I want you to make all sorts of things. I want to give you all sorts of really cool, crazy ideas that maybe haven't existed before. I'm not a traditional kind of guy. I don't build traditional stuff in a traditional manner. I do things my way, and it's all based on what's up here. So hopefully you use that and you can put that into motion. Enjoy the video, guys. Thank you so much. Like and subscribe. I say that at the end of the video too, but please like and subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. Have a good one. Enjoy. Alright, so here's the large chunk of cedar. I mean, it's pretty significant. This was actually gifted to me. My dad was on a construction site, and the guy he builds custom decks and all sorts of other cool stuff. He had this big giant chunk of cedar left. I'm not even certain that I think it may be too thick to put on a table saw, so I may have to run it on both sides. Hopefully I can get a nice square cut. We shall see. Excuse me, good lord. We shall see. So I have this large piece of cedar. Once again, obviously, I don't know how many people are going to have a roughly 5 by 12 inch piece of cedar laying around. Go pick up some dimensional lumber. Go on Facebook Marketplace. There's always somebody around selling cedar for cheaper. Always. Rough cut cedar. Look it up. A good size board, a 1 by 5 by 8 with a good price should only cost about 10 bucks, if that gives you any ideas. And I will have a video on this guy. So this is actually a mobile planter that I designed and had cut. It's made out of HDPE, but I'm not going to get into that. Really cool. But yeah, it's a mobile planter. Really, really neat. So I just use it as a storage cart for now. Okay, so this is called gutter coil. Gutter coil comes in maximum 15 inches wide. It comes in maximum of 15 inches wide. I picked up the .027 inch thickness. That just means the thickness of it. And it's got it's pretty significant. I mean, it's no joke. And by the way, to cut this, you'll be using a razor blade, a utility blade. I use a carbon tipped utility blade from Home Depot. They sell, I think, DeWalt sells them. Or you can pick up some metal roof flashing, significantly thinner. Much thinner. However, both sides are raw aluminum. So if you're not going to have something too crazy, or you don't want to brace it that much, you can use this. You can get away with it. I'm going to show you an example of a smaller planter I made using this and cedar. But this stuff is the way to go. You can pick it up in all different kinds of colors. I mean, it's really cool. It's kind of a pain to brad. You can't staple it. You have to brad nail it. But it's kind of a pain to cut, but man, it just makes the world of difference, and it does look cool. I mean, you can get it in different colors. I got the evergreen, and this stuff is not that expensive for a 30. What is it? 30. I picked up the 35-foot roll of this. I've already used some. A 35-foot roll cost me about 30 bucks. I picked up a 50-foot roll of this, cost me about 26 bucks. So there you go. Okay, so here's one of the smaller planters I made. I mean, it is pretty small. Here's my hand for comparison. I have large hands, but I believe it may be about 21 inches by 21 inches, maybe 18 inches tall. It's really, really pretty. So we're gonna be building something like this. So I used the thin aluminum for the sides on this one because it is not deep, and the soil is not gonna make it bow out too much. And yeah, I mean, it'll last a very, very long time. So this is just an example of one of the small ones I've already made, and I'm gonna go show you the bigger ones. Okay, so here are some of the larger planters I've made. So obviously this guy is huge. I mean, these two, they're twins. They're absolutely massive, okay? I may be showing y'all how to build one of these, but it will not be from cedar. It'll more likely be from treated lumber. Cedar's great for 25, 30 years. It looks really, really nice. Honestly, it has a really pretty color, especially whenever it rains on it. And by the way, on the bottom of these, put geotextile, non-woven. It just has a great drainage. You can look that up after the fact. But I'm going to be using predominantly treated lumber from my projects from here on. It lasts longer. It may not look quite as nice. And here's some of that woven geotextile. I need to get some non-woven. but it only comes in 300-foot rolls. And then for this, I use the thicker gauge green aluminum on this. Now this thing is an absolute monster. It weighs about 250 pounds. All right, so we have a bit of a conundrum. This is the maximum height on this table saw. This is a, this is just a construction model DeWalt. It's a portable table saw. So it has a 10-inch blade. So we are just shy about an inch. So I am going to have to flip the piece over, and then assume that both sides are as parallel as they can be, so I can get a semi-straight cut. That's kind of a pain in the butt. Also, just be sure to yank out staples. Most of the time, a blade will go right through them, but if you do happen to clip them and one of these guys comes at your eyeball, that would be a really bad day. So I just want to go ahead and point that out. So this piece of wood is about 9 3/4 wide. So what you want to do is you always want to have a nice parallel edge to base everything on. You'll use that as a reference while you cut, and it should keep the cuts nice and parallel versus riding it on an uneven edge trying to get straight cuts on this way. So what I went ahead and did was put it up on the table saw, and I'm going to be literally taking off about 1/8 of an inch, and that'll just clean up one of these edges so I have a reference to work with. I'm going to basically be cutting these to thickness, and then I'll be cutting these into strips. I'll probably cut them somewhere around right in the middle. So the thickness that I would like, let's do 1-inch thickness. That'll work just fine. So far I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces that are 1-inch thick. So basically, since I'm gonna be ripping these directly in half, cleaning them up, each one of these will be one side. So I really only need 4 of these for the sides. I'll be using the last one for the slats that run along the bottom, and maybe some trim pieces or something like that. And I still have quite a big chunk left right here. Probably, I don't know, maybe actually 4 inches by 4 inches, versus going to Home Depot and getting screwed, because they only give you, I believe, they short you, they jupe you like 1/4 of an inch. So I think we have like a 4 by 4 piece left. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rip down a 2-inch thick section, and the 2-inch thick section will serve as the legs. And I mean, it's pretty easy going from here on. So here's the part that's going to be a little bit tricky, and it would be made a lot easier if I had a jointer, and I do not. I do, however, have a very nice bandsaw, but I can't use it on account of I broke the bandsaw blade. So, so we have one piece for the slats at the very bottom, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces for all 4 sides, and then we have this one piece for the legs. So once again, about the jointer, I'm going to have to reference one of these sides, make it completely straight, and jointer would do that very quickly. I can mitigate it and do it somewhat closely on a table saw, and unfortunately that's what I'm going to have to do. So fingers crossed that I can get these as straight as possible, at least have one straight edge.
Alright, you may have noticed me laying down the board before it was cut. So what I was doing was, how am I going to do this with my hands? Let's just imagine you have an awfully warped board and it's like a C, right? It's better to ride that C with this part, the arch, whatever, wherever that bow is, riding against the rail, we'll call that. I think that's what this is called, the guide. So you want to ride it this way. You don't want to have the rounded part against here because you're going to end up screwing it. I mean, if it's too long of a board, that's part of having a jointer. It makes it so much easier. You don't even really have to worry about that. You just ride it up along the jointer a bunch of times and you got a straight edge on here. If it's not too long of a piece, and these pieces aren't too long, they're maybe 4 feet, you can get pretty close. And if you have to, just run it against here again with that slight cup face towards the rail, and it should give you a pretty much flat surface. So you see here, if I press down on this side, it doesn't really move. If I press down on this side, it doesn't really move. So I succeeded. I have an almost straight edge. Alright, so these pieces are now pretty much right at 4 inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut pieces from this that are, let's say, you don't want to do exactly 2 inches because you got to understand that the curve of the blade is about 1/8 of an inch. So let's do, let's do 1 3/4 inches.
Alright, so you may have noticed I've already uploaded 1 video so far. I'm kind of new on YouTube. I'm not a very safe person, okay? I must admit. I would aim and strive to be much safer. I should be using a push stick. I should probably be wearing eye protection. I am not, however. You can call me all the names you'd like in the comments. I'm sure that you will. Call me nice names. Make sure to call me a moron, stupid, you're dumb, you're going to hurt yourself, you're going to kill yourself. Those are the things that I like to hear. Those are the things that give me the most joy. But yes, please wear protection, always. Otherwise, you may end up with some unwanted pregnancies. So far, I have taken 4 of those 1 inch boards and I have stripped them down into 1 1/4 wide pieces. So technically my pieces for the side panels are complete. It'll make more sense as I go. I understand that this is a whole lot of cutting and a whole lot of talky. But whenever it's all laid out, I will lay all the parts out in front of you so that you can see exactly what's going on. I'm a very hands-on person. My description is not based on what I'm going to do, it's based on what I am doing. Everything else that's going on is going on in my head. And there's not really that much space up there as it is, so it's just best for me just to do it and just tell you what I'm doing. So next on the chopping block, literally, is our last 1 inch piece, 1 inch thick piece, I mean. So now I'm going to be making the strapping for the bottom section that's going to run like this, like floor joists almost. So since this is going to be a smaller planter, I'm not going to have to worry about making the bottom too overbuilt. I'm going to be cutting these down into, say, 1/2 inch strips, and then cutting them down even further, and then those will make up for the slats. So that's what I'm going to do now. Line that up, get that cut.
Alright, so at this point I cut all of my strips for the bottom part, cut all my parts for the side sections. Oh man, there's a bunch of cops over across the street. Ooh. They probably got the houses wrong. They're supposed to be here. So I got all those parts cut. Now it's on to the legs. But as I've been cutting these, now keep in mind, I'm going to be using the gutter coil. The gutter coil maxes out at 15 inches wide, which means that my planter, since those pieces that I cut, they're 1.75 inches, 1 3/4 inches. I can't make it any more, the planting space that is, I want to leave those, you'll see, it'll all be enclosed, it'll be really nice, but it has to be a minimum of 15 inches tall, the planting space, where I'm going to be framing all this stuff up, with a maximum 1.75, 1 3/4, 1 3/4 is 3.5, 3.5 plus 15, 18, so I wouldn't go any more then 17.5 inches tall for the planting space, not including the legs. That's a totally different story. But now, moving on to the legs. Alright, so I went ahead and ran the legs through. So I took it to width. Which made the nice 2 clean cuts on both sides, and then I was left with 2 uneven sides. Remember, because I had to run it through, and then I had to flip the big giant piece of wood. So I went ahead and shifted it this way about 1/4 of an inch, made a nice straight reference side, and then I flipped it over and then took it to 1 3/4 inches for the width and the depth, vice versa. So now you should end up with, look at that, not too bad. Not too bad at all. A poor man's jointer. I mean, it's almost completely perfectly square. Not too bad. Alright, so now it's time to start cutting these down. The 1 1/4 by 1 inch pieces. So we had 8 of these total. So 4 of these will be used for the top and the bottom of the frames for each side. It'll make more sense as we keep going on. What's important though for the slats, and keep in mind my situation is going to be very different than yours. You're going to probably have full length lumber, 8 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot, whatever you get. But in this case, my slats for the slat pieces, these are 45 inches long. So what I'm going to do, since I want to get as much bang for my buck as possible, I want to be able to cut these in half. So half of 45 is 22.5. But I don't want to be like just riding the cusp, just barely making it by. So a little less than half is what you want to cut these pieces to for the 4 frames. That way the slats are a good length and you have enough wiggle room to play with. So I will be cutting these to 21 inches long. And so I can get 2 out of each one for top and bottom for 4 sides. So 8 of them total. Alright, so just like that, all of my pieces for the top and the bottom, for each side of the frame, for each individual side, cut 21 inches in length. Now it's time for the vertical pieces to finish off the frame for each individual side. So once again, back to what I was saying about the gutter coil, it's 15 inches wide. I'm going to go ahead and make the frame 16 inches tall, so that allows half an inch of play. And yeah, it's plenty. It's like 1.25 inches on each piece of wood, which is plenty. So in order to do that, we got 1 3/4, 1 3/4, 3.5, 3.5 minus 16 is 12.5 inches. So we're going to be cutting these to 12.5 inch lengths.
Alright, so now I'm going to be cutting the leg sections. I want this one to have a little bit more leg, kind of like a runway model. So this time, yeah, let's get some long legs on this son of a gun. I'm going to be cutting the legs to 20-inch lengths. And then that way, well, no, that's not that long leg. That's a little short and chubby. It's going to be a bit of a midget. So it'll have about 4 feet worth of leg, 4 inches worth of leg. So yeah, I'm going to cut them to 21 inches on second thought. So 21-inch legs for these. Alright, so now we have our legs. They're a little short and stubby, but that's okay. We're going to have about 5 inches hanging out the bottom, which is totally cool. I really don't want this little planter to be too high up off the ground. I was just making a joke really about the runway model. I really do want it to be short and chubby because it really won't make any sense if there's gigantic legs hanging out the bottom. So 21-inch legs, hey man, that's pretty cool with me. 5 inches at the bottom. I think that'll look really natural, really pretty, and it'll go well because I don't think there's going to be any massive plants in this planter anyway. Maybe a cactus or something in North Carolina. Yeah.
All right, so here's the beginning of one side. So I basically just took an angle, I put it against there, put some brad nails through the top just to temporarily hold, right? And then now I'm going to put my trim pieces right here, and then I'll show you what it looks like after that. All right, now the trim sections on the sides are complete. They're installed right there. Once again, just temporarily with brad nails. All right, focus for me. I already pre-cut my aluminum panels. I cut them with a utility blade in the right angle. That's how I cut them. Cut them to 21.5 inch lengths. All right, so I took the frame, I flipped it upside down. This is the back side. This is going to be the inside of the planter. So I put the color part facing out, so it'll look nice. You can see that color. The raw aluminum on the inside. Just put a couple temporary brad nails in there to hold it in place. And then there's one partially completed panel. All right, so all 4 panels are almost complete. All I'm going to do now is flip them over. I'm going to make some strips of wood, and I'm basically going to put them across the top to hold that aluminum panel down flush. That way the edge is not exposed. Same goes for the bottom. That's where the slats are going to rest on top of. All right, I'm going to get these cut, and I'm going to go ahead and install them, show you what it looks like, and then we can actually start putting this thing together. All right, so the little strips are installed now. They're flush with the edge, and they're the same spacing, they're the same length as the spacing between here and here, this edge. That way, whenever I put the legs on, it butts right up to those little pieces on the back. Fits perfect, no issues, everything is good. So, so this top part will just keep the top part of the aluminum from bowing out or anything. It just keeps it nice and secure. And then the bottom piece right here is where the slats are going to lay on, and then you'll be able to nail those in place. And that is that. Next up, installing the legs. Woo woo. This is what we have so far. After all the little panels were finished, I pretty much just butted the leg joint up to those little pieces of wood, those little strips of wood right there. Went together like a glove. Everything is temporarily brad nailed together. And then now we have to measure from this piece to this piece. We're going to put it along this way. It doesn't really matter which way you do it. You can crisscross applesauce, you can go across long ways. It's all the same, truly. So anyways, we're going to measure from the metal to the metal, and then we'll cut it to that length. And then we're basically just going to lay them just like this. And here is the final product, guys. I think it turned out really, really nice. I'm liking the way it looks. After I put the brad nails in and installed or secured everything temporarily, I went ahead and used some outdoor fasteners, outdoor rated fasteners. And then the slats on the inside, I basically just put a slat down, nailed it in place, placed another slat, temporarily just a dummy slat just to space it, put another one, brad nailed it, etc. So that way it looks nice and even. You can use anything down there you want, absolutely anything. I mean, you could just fill it up with lava rock or whatever at the very bottom for drainage. Just do whatever you want. Place a pot inside there, it doesn't matter. But yeah, this thing is pretty robust. I'd say it's overbuilt for what it is, but it's beautiful. Anybody can do it, really truly anybody can do it. It's a simple design, it has a little bit of like a Japanese flair to it. It's got a nice little bit of color. The cedar looks nice. It's just heavy duty, absolutely heavy duty. And that's it, guys. Really hope you enjoyed this whole thing. Sorry the video was so long, but I think it turned out absolutely amazing. And I hope you think the same. Just tell me what you think in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. That's the first time I ever said that. Feels pretty good. But I think this is the beginning of something quite beautiful. Later, guys. Have a great one.